AI is being sold as the future of everything. Faster, smarter, better. But beneath the hype is a growing shadow. Surveillance, manipulation, deepfakes, bias, job loss, and systems we may no longer control. The deeper AI reaches into our lives, the more urgent the questions become. This series goes past the headlines and into the truth. This is the dark side of AI. Today, we're diving into a disturbing story about artificial intelligence, identity, and what happens when the machines built to recognize us fail to see us at all. What if a sophisticated system designed to detect human faces could look directly at someone and fail to register that a face is even there? That is not science fiction. It's a real problem. And it reveals something fundamental about the code increasingly shaping our world. The story became impossible to ignore through the work of Dr. Joy Baulam-Winnie, who was testing facial recognition software and kept running into the same failure again and again. The system simply did not detect her face. And that is what made the moment so important. This was not a one-time glitch. The failure was systematic. The software consistently failed to recognize a real human face under normal conditions. The breakthrough came through a bizarre workaround. The system would finally recognize a face, but only when a plain white mask was held in front of the real one. That result exposed something much deeper than a camera problem. That experiment showed the problem was not lighting, not hardware, and not random error. The issue was embedded in the system's definition of what a face looked like in the first place. That phenomenon has a name: algorithmic bias. Not random mistakes, but systematic, repeatable errors that create unfair outcomes where some people are consistently recognized and others consistently missed. At its core, the system was not really understanding faces, it was matching patterns. And when a face did not resemble the patterns it had learned from training data, the system broke down. The white mask mattered because it created a simple, high-contrast pattern the model was more likely to recognize. In other words, the machine was more comfortable with a simplified pattern than with the human face behind it. And that is why this case matters far beyond one researcher and one program. It points to a much larger issue: who gets included in the digital world and who gets excluded by systems that are supposed to work for everyone. This is what some describe as a digital exclusive zone, an invisible barrier where tools that work smoothly for some people repeatedly fail for others. And once that happens, the consequences can spread well beyond inconvenience. And facial recognition is only one example. Similar patterns show up in image generators, hiring tools, and other AI systems whenever the training data reflects a narrow version of the world instead of the real one. The machine is not choosing prejudice on its own. It is reflecting the data it was trained on. And if that data overrepresents one type of face, one type of person, or one version of normal, the model learns that distorted picture as reality. And that is why this cannot be dismissed as technical curiosity. When biased systems are used in policing, hiring, blending, or access control, the consequences stop being frustrating and start being questions of fairness, justice, and power. That is what makes the original image so powerful. A brilliant researcher made invisible by the very system built to see her, and only recognized her once her humanity was covered by something the model understood better. And that leaves us with a bigger question. If the systems we are building inherit some of our oldest blind spots, what kind of future are we creating when we hand them more and more power? So what do we do with this? We stop calling bias a glitch like it's some tiny side issue. When a system sees some people clearly and others badly, that's not just a technical bug. That becomes a social problem fast. So ask harder questions about the system being used. Who was the model trained on? Who gets misread? Who gets excluded? And who carries the cost when a bad system gets treated like an objective one? Because the dark side of AI is not just that it can be wrong, it's that it can be wrong in patterns that keep landing on the same people. And once systems can sort, misread, and profile people unevenly, The next question is, how quietly can they track and recognize us at all? The next chapter is the rock in the shoe.